Good morning, Bucknutters. I really hope this camera wasn't on before we started the show. It is Thursday, December 11th, 2025. I am Dan Rubin. It's the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. Garrick, Hodge, Mark Porter are here. We had a bunch of stuff to discuss. And then, wouldn't you know, Michigan tried to start their own sitcom up there. We found out today that Mark has heard of Northern Exposure. Garrick is still a wee lad, had never heard of it. It's a sitcom. It's the name of the show today. As I said to my friends here, college football is the gift that keeps on giving. I thought Sharon Moore might be in trouble for his on-field tomfoolery, and it turns out his hijinks off the field seems to have gotten him run out the building. He has been fired with cause. Everyone has already read about this and knows what's going on. More information is coming out now. They know who his betrothed was, allegedly. Garrick, when we heard this, my first thought was, how could this potentially help the Buckeyes, besides giving everyone a good chuckle and just knowing once again that our moral compass is pointed in the proper direction while theirs, how are they blaming Ryan Day for this, was one of the things I got on my text early. I enjoyed that one. Your thoughts, Garrick, on how this could affect Ohio State, your impression of when you heard it, we're kind of vamping here.
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll start with your direct question on how this could potentially help Ohio State. I guess the easiest way to sum up is that Michigan's roster could be purged, quite frankly, whether it's, by Ohio State directly or just other programs that are smelling blood in the water right now. I wrote a piece on Bucknuts yesterday that kind of wrote an all-encompassing 30,000-foot view on how this could potentially affect Ohio State from both an on-the-field standpoint and a personnel standpoint, right? But I think, and we can get into this maybe a little bit later, but there's a chance this might work out for Michigan in the long term, only because I think that they were on a complete downward trajectory with Sharon Moore on the field. So there's a chance the next coach they get is a considerable upgrade, both in terms of as a recruiter and in terms of what he does on the field, specifically offense. I mean, Sharon was an offensive coordinator. That's how he made his bread and butter. And Michigan's offense in his 2 years at the helm was very underwhelming, both years. One with a less than stellar quarterback, and then one with a $3.5 million quarterback. So either way, that ain't going to get it done, as the cut and dry way to put it. But I think in terms of Ohio State directly, the best way it can benefit them is if Michigan's roster's purged, which, when your rival gets weakened, you obviously get stronger. In terms of players going to Ohio State directly, I always kind of struggle with that, especially in terms of if you're established at Michigan, because it's very hard to ingrain hate in yourself for a particular institution, whereas all Buckeye players hate Michigan, all Michigan players hate Ohio State, et cetera. And then even if you have 1 foot out the door to go there, if you've been established in that culture, not saying it can't happen, because of course it has happened both with players and with coaches before. But I mean, just look at Jordan Marshall's comments a few weeks ago, right, guys? But
those don't look as good right now.
Oh, no, that did not age well. That aged like milk sitting out in the hot sun, didn't it? But I think the most likely outcome, if you are going to get someone to consider going to Ohio State, is the recent signees. I guess Michigan kind of timed this about as well as they could have under the circumstances, because it's right after signing day, so all their 26 commits are signed. And the transfer portal doesn't open for another 3 weeks. So they have some time to try to salvage as much of their roster as they can. Whereas if this happened, the Tuesday before National Signing Day, or even signing day itself, it might have been oh God. And then they might have had 3 Chris Henry Jr. situations where they're open for business in the last 72 hours. Right. But if you're looking at 2 specific guys that Ohio State would really love to see come back on the market. Obviously, they can't do anything until those guys decide that they do want to go in the transfer portal that opens January 2nd. That would be their first opportunity. Would be running back Savion Hyder and then edge Carter Meadows, both 5-star talents, both either near the top or at the top of their position groups. Ohio State was right in the thick of it for both of them. I think that if both of those players were to come on the market, Ohio State would have some very peculiar interest in those guys. Those are the two that come to mind. There could be others, who knows. But, yeah, I just struggle of seeing guys that have been established at Michigan for 1 or 2 years just wanting to go to Ohio State, because you got to be willing to take on the villain role to do that. And some guys are willing to do that, but you know that if you flip sides in this rivalry, that's the end of it for you. You can never go back to your original institution of choice after that, because they do not look kindly to those. I mean, they'd rather have you go to Michigan or Ohio State initially than start at one place and then end up at the other, right? But
definitely.
Yeah. And this is just a wild situation, guys. Can this school go 5 damn minutes without some kind of gripping on or off field scandal? It's unreal.
I think they were already the only school, and I don't know this for a fact. I think they were already the only school in which the head coach was suspended for some point in time for 3 years in a row. This would have made it, instead of making it 4, they're just like, dude, just get out.
Here's my thing. Doesn't have to serve a 1-game suspension next year, though. He doesn't have to miss the season opener, because he did have to miss the Western Michigan game and the initial punishments released by the NCAA for the science stealing scandal. Also, by the way, quick note before we delve into other subjects. I should have led with this. I buried the lead. But under the old guard NCAA rules, players would be transfer eligible right now. It doesn't work like that anymore. Under the old guard, there was a 30-day window when there was a coaching change in your program. The new rules are you get a 15-day window 5 days after the next coach is hired. So these guys are not theoretically open for business. I know that there's a lot of tampering that goes on everywhere in the country, so I'm not naive to that fact. But in terms of strictly by the book on-field rules, it's changed from a year ago. So if it was last year, these guys would all be open for business right now for 30 days. But now they won't be able to enter their names in the portal until 5 days after they hire a new coach.
Mark, before I turn it over here, 2 things came to mind with this. It reminded me kind of a scene in one of the Bourne movies where Pamela Landy's about to get the thing put on her neck. Sharon Moore was the coach, and they were like, if this goes wrong, we'll just put it on Pam Landy. I can just imagine Harbaugh and Manuel sitting down like, here, put it on Sharon. He gets the title, and the next 3 years he can ride the thing right into the crapper. I want to talk about the recruiting. Let's just say hypothetically, if your son had just committed to Michigan and signed, and now I hear every single Michigan person say on the air, oh, I've been hearing about this for a year. I've been hearing about this for 6 months. We've been hearing about this for a while. And yet you waited until my kid signed, and now he's screwed. That would make me want to leave and not be a Michigan man, as it were. Your thoughts on that? You got a son who's being recruited soon, and your vibe generally, what you're hearing from your coaching cronies, your assessment of Northern exposure.
The one joke I got from a coaching crony was, well, this takes the spotlight off Ohio U.
Yeah.
Because they have a similar situation down there.
My thought was Pete Bavacqua at Notre Dame has never been so happy to see a new theory come up. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and all what a distraction from the Big Ten championship. Like, just way to get your mind off of that and onto something else that it could bring in a little joy. That's the part that you would really, if I was a parent, I'd really want to know, like, did you guys really know this was going on for the last whatever, like before signing day? And did you purposely let us all sign, and then this comes to light? And that's a message board rumor. So
is that a question?
No, I don't want to accuse, because there's a lot of this is unfactual. It's for message boards, but you're right. There's a very good possibility they could have covered it up until after signing day, which, boy, that's a dirty trick in the days of dirty tricks. And you would feel like that as a parent, where, I have to back up a step. Being a college football player and being around college coaches all the time, and sitting in some of their meetings, these guys are like leaders of young men, and they stand there and lecture and go through other people who lecture on decisions that young men are making. And it's almost like you always think that, yeah, we're dumb enough to do this stuff because we're a bunch of crazy kids and we're fueled by alcohol on the weekends and things go awry, and you're constantly telling us to keep it in check. And you just assume that the men there are keeping things in check and setting the example. So to be giving those lectures to a team and not living that lifestyle, that's one of those red flags where, boy, it does make you think, like you're seeing when that portal window is open, that rule change, Garrick, where you get the new coach. So that's going to be their only savior is some
don't hire anybody.
Clean as a whistle guy comes in that's
and
like whitier than white. That when he comes in, you're like, oh, okay, this guy will rise above it, or he's always been above it. And, I'm not trying to, it's hard to say things supportive of Michigan on a Ohio State podcast, but they have to clean the slate and bring in someone whiter than white, just has a absolute perfect, resume around kids and stuff like that to keep this together. Because this day and age, when that portal opens, you could lose 20% of your team, 30%. I mean, it could be a mass exodus. And even though it's a Michigan thing and the Michigan man thing where, we're above all this and, that has to be reestablished, right? I know that's why you say that stuff on Ohio State podcast. It doesn't go over well, but they really have to get back to those core values with someone who can really, walk the walk and talk the talk. And in college football, there are guys like that out there, that really could bring a white knight, on a white horse in there and, make it look like it's royal again. So it's going to be tough.
I'll say this.
So to answer your question, we would have to see who got hired if I had a son, and like I said, if that white is the guy, okay, maybe we'll, we believe that this will reunite and, reignite. But boy, you felt like you've been duped is what you're feeling right now, especially if you're Hyder and some of these high priority guys. You definitely feel like people all over that program, that have talked to you have kind of not been. It's tough to start off a relationship when you're not looking someone in the eye and they're telling you the truth.
I get that they want to go back to a time when they may have been above board. There's something about that time. They never beat Ohio State during that time. I saw someone say, "Oh, Ohio State, they're 1-4 against Michigan now." So my daughter's 20. She's 15-5 against Michigan. That's a pretty good record. So 1-4 is selective. When they did things by the book, they were recruiting guys. I'm not going to say the kid's name out loud, but there was once this DB from Mooney who committed there, and I'm like, he's smaller than my youngest kid. You know who it is. Don't say his name because I don't want to be rude. Don't say his name. We'll say it afterwards, and I'll bet you don't know it.
What's funny is usually
don't say it.
I can't remember anybody's name, but the second you said that, it's clear as day, almost like that guy who reads minds. He'd be like, "This is who you're thinking of."
Yeah, I'm writing it down now.
Begins with an R.
His first name does. Don't look it up because you won't find it. That's going to get clipped, and we have plausible deniability. All right. Certainly an alarming situation. Here's what's really interesting. They didn't exactly enter the coaching market at a good time if you're looking to get someone who you had lined up. Who do you think would be even you know who they're going to go after? I saw the name put up there. Whoever said it was a good idea is David Shaw. The guy used to coach at Stanford. That would be a good choice for them. He's got a squeaky clean reputation and comes from an institution like that. I just don't even know how to address it. In terms of recruiting, I would think that Carter Meadows and Savion Hyder are going to be – there is nothing like being an elite prospect who gets released back to the masses after everyone else is taken. I happen to be very close to a basketball player once who was a McDonald's All-American, committed. His coach left, and then all of a sudden he was the only McDonald's All-American in every single school in the country. Ones who didn't even want him before, they all come calling. So I wouldn't shed any tears for Savion Hyder and Carter Meadows. My guess is this won't hurt their bottom line in the long run. And the rest of the crew there, but just a wild development.
I think they're going to go after Kalen DeBoer. Personally.
I've heard that, and that sounds like low-hanging fruit, but
I don't think it's just message board fodder. I think that's legit their number one target.
Meaning what?
As in, I just think that
you're saying you think there's a chance they're going to.
I'm saying there's
and he's going to listen.
That it happens. Yes, I don't think it's just pie in the sky. They have no shot of it actually happening. I think it's entirely possible that this could happen. Now, the timing may be not on their side at all. From all the reports out there, I think that Michigan really wants a hire in place by January 2nd for obvious reasons, because that's the start of the transfer portal. But I mean, Kalen DeBoer has been in the pressure cooker for 2 years after replacing Nick Saban. Unfortunately for him, he made the playoffs this year. I mean, the Iron Bowl was a little tight, but if he would have lost that game, it would have been really, let's just say, unfortunate for his well-being down there. I just think it's tough when you've lived in the West Coast and the Midwest your entire life and in the South. I just wonder if that fit is still not there, even though he's having some on-field success. Now, they're in the playoffs. They're going to play next week against Oklahoma. If they lose round one, I could see it happening. If they win that game and then they got to go play Indiana in the Rose Bowl, the timing certainly gets a little trickier in terms of getting the logistics worked out, because if you're Michigan, I don't think you can wait past January 2nd. I just don't think you can do it. And at least a somewhat competitive team next year. I just don't think it's feasible. But yeah, I guess long story short, I think the DeBoer smoke, there's actually some legs to it. Not saying they're going to get him. I don't think that it's given by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's plausible that that's who they end up going after really hard.
Here's my thought on that. Who does Alabama have that we want? That'd be even better. I'm not even kidding. I hope that happens. And the first thing I'm doing is getting out my Alabama list. Now I got Alabama and Michigan to pilfer. I'm dead serious. Don't you think that's everyone's mentality, Mark?
I was just thinking, we're talking about the recruits, the two prize recruits that may leave. What about the team? That's the other part of this. Everyone's going to have a new coach. They're not going to want to go through a rebuild if that's the feeling. And there's going to be a lot of people jumping ship. So I think it is tough. And I think when you fire your coach like Penn State did, you want to operate from a position of power. We're listen, we're going to get our first pick of the litter of all the coaches available, the guy we wanted, the guy we circled. And Penn State did. I think Penn State did really good for this, getting Matt Campbell. I'm a Matt Campbell fan. So I think they landed on their feet, but I think they got thrown for a loop. Michigan, this is not a position of strength. This is a position of weakness from hiring. You're going after maybe second, third, and fourth choices. You're going to have to pay them maybe more than you'd want to get out of this situation. And it's all of a sudden you're like, and I like the way you said it, Garrick, that, Sharon may have been on his way out already. And this may be a gift that they got rid of him a year or two before this thing dipped down another 5 or 10%.
Long term. Sure.
Yeah. So you like you said, you may have avoided the dip here and cut it short. Okay. And I'm,
that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm like, oh boy, I didn't see that. That's playing chess there. They may have got out of this and started the rebuild early, but you have to do it with the right guy. And I tell you what, the more you see coaches go in this day and age, what a disaster for the program every time it happens. It's not just a coach you're losing. It's like a roster. In the NFL, what if a coach left and 10 or 15% of the team just said, I'm going somewhere else now? This is unprecedented. It's hard to gauge how devastating it is. And we hope as Buckeye fans, you hope it's totally devastating. You want to see 30% of the roster defect to other teams. You want to see him hire the guy that nobody wants. But, I don't know if we get that lucky again.
I wonder, and this is the last I'll ask about it, I wonder what it does to those who give money to Michigan. That would bother me pretty heavily if I was given money all this time and it turns out, not even say I'm some morally high road guy, but if I'm giving you money and you're going to end up having to flush it down the toilet here, that would upset me greatly.
I can talk about that a little bit. So when all these rumors started kind of getting circulated, and when they were just message board fodder and, rival fans having a good laugh on Twitter about it, and who knows the validity of it, right? But I poked around vaguely about it. I was like, this has got to just be some made-up stuff about Michigan fans that are pissed off about losing to Ohio State, right?
Time out. Good point there. So some people thought this was a creative way for them to get rid of Sharon Moore now because he's not good at coaching football. I'm sorry, Garrick, go ahead.
Yes. That was my initial reaction
Right.
to, like, okay, this is all surfacing from fans primarily right after they lost to Ohio State. Like, I doubt there's anything of substance here. Anyway, through some various back channels, you know what the source of these leaks were, or why they became so mainstream? Boosters that were very unhappy about things that were unfolding at Michigan. And maybe the money's back in play now, but under the current administration, I thought that some funds might have been drying up there. So that was just a little tidbit that I heard, that boosters were very unhappy about this before any move was made. So to your point of how would people feel that are giving money to the program, and how would that affect their purse strings? Well, there's a little inside baseball for you.
There's a couple mistakes made here for sure. One is they should never have released the number they were paying the quarterback. Much like when Ryan Day mentioned the amount it was going to take to run a program, and everyone just homered in on that number for the rest of their life and was breaking it down. They should not have done that, because I think it's fair to say that money was not well spent this year. It's lame and cliche to say it, but yes, follow the money. It always comes back to who's going to pay, and even more now with NIL. You can't be competitive against who looks really good in scarlet and gray unless you're the total package. Credit to Indiana for what they've done. Can they sustain that without James Madison players? We'll see going forward, but it's not an easy task. Definitely kind of wild. Mark, you want the last word on this? Your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, you have a guy like Portnoy who's opened up his checkbook and said, "I'll do anything for you. I'll buy whatever you need. I love this team so much." And there were other bigger donors than him that were saying, "Yeah, we're gonna be your new benefactors. We're gonna be the new owners of the team." Those people are gonna pick the new coach. Okay, we're in a day and age where the money donors,
this time around for sure.
Yeah, like, we run this. Like, you guys think that you're gonna do this? No, like, if you want my support, it's going to be this guy or this guy. If you want me to buy you another quarterback, I want him coached by this guy, someone I believe in. And I think we're in this whole new day and age where once you let that money infiltrate your program, and they were wide open to it. Okay, we want Underwood. We'll do the deal with the devil where we're going to bring these other voices into our, decider room. They're now deciders for us. I mean, Portnoy's fun, and that stuff is kind of cool. And, if you're a fan of Michigan, it's nice having guys. But, man, if you wrote that check and you're guys like that, it's tough to write that check again unless they give you what you want. Okay, they go hire someone you don't like, you may have cut off the pipeline to some major donors.
That's a great point. Do you think Ward Manuel survives this day?
I was just going to say that. Let's say, for those who don't know, Ward Manuel is the athletic director at Michigan, and is rumored to be under the gun now, as one might expect. So they may be doing a complete house cleaning. Then you got to, I would assume, don't you have to hire your AD before you hire your coach, right? Isn't that usually the GM? You want him to hire the coach, otherwise the coach is always on borrowed time?
You would think so, but you could especially since they have an interim president right now, so they're all out of whack in terms of administration. But you could make it under the guise of, the Board of Regents is going to handle this. But to parrot what Mark just said, perhaps it's the people that are funding this purse strings that really have the decision, even if they keep Ward Manuel. So who's really making the decision? Who knows? But I don't know. I have no inside info on if Ward's going to survive this or if he's not, but I just think that's a very interesting component, because I would assume that the Michigan brass would have to evaluate all the things that have happened under his leadership the past couple years.
in the interest of full disclosure here, people are talking about Larry Ellison because Larry Ellison's wife is a Michigan grad. And I heard Dave Portnoy say they got together and helped generate the funds for the quarterback. To be fair, Larry Ellison's son, David, is the owner of the company that owns this site. He owns, if you can read about it in the news, they own CBS, they own 24/7 Sports. So people with a lot of money own a lot of stuff. That's not news. But here's another thing. The donors, yeah, that's not the group you want to be on the other side of. And with Ward Manuel going down, I'll just say this, and I'll leave it at this. Someone's going to write a book about the last X number of years at Michigan and pull no punches, and we aren't going to feel any better about what went on there. It's been really, really shady. Like I said, you've had your coach be suspended almost every year. This leads me to believe there's a lot of juicy, salacious stuff there that we didn't know about. Someone's going to make some serious dough. They're going to, give you the details on how they allegedly faked COVID because they knew they were going to the shed and I'm going to lose by 50. Keep in mind, Harbaugh had to take a pay cut. Go ask yourself how many great coaches you've ever seen take a pay cut. There aren't many. Suggest a pay cut to an employee. See how they respond to that. It's not good usually. So that's interesting. All right, let's flip to some other stuff. This isn't going to be that much more enjoyable probably, but we got to do the second half from the Buckeye and the Sky. It's kind of a weird transition. Look, I don't do the content here except for, channel it into here. Who knew Michigan was going to be the gift that kept on giving? This is the second half. Mark Porter, take it away.
Yeah, it's from one not fun topic to another.
The other topic was funner for me personally. This one less fun. Go ahead.
Less fun, yeah. Okay, so Indiana was doing this cover 4 shell, and I thought they did a good job of disguising. I said it's akin to what Matt Patricia's been doing. We've been giving Indiana a lot of compliments. When they've been rolling the cover 3, they've been rolling up and covering up blitzes. The blitz off the edge here isn't the problem. Julian's getting in his drop, and we have all verticals, so there's all backs of receivers, which means unless they're and you can see that there's people over the top, so you're kind of going to get a throw into coverage here. This maybe isn't the greatest play, and you can't see it develop because we're not getting the all-22 here. But when the quarterback gets to the top of his drop, which means he's putting his back foot in the ground, why are we not rolling here? We have a problem. Houston, I don't like to point it out, but Tegra is beat, and he's beat badly. Cleanly, and a lot of the other ones we were making excuses for everybody else, and hey, receivers not looking, coverage sack, calling plays into the teeth of the defense. Hats off to Indiana. This is a call out on our guard. He needed to do a better job here. No quarterback can get to the top of the drop, put their back foot in the ground, and have this much heat in their face. If someone was open, you wouldn't be able to get it to him. But I don't think anyone was open, but that's not going to excuse that poor of a block.
I think that's Philip Daniels.
Philip Daniels. I'm sorry. My bad.
That's to be fair.
Yeah.
Listen, Tegra didn't have a great game, but to be fair, that was Philip Daniels. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I thought that came through the
guard. Good.
Okay.
I missed it too.
Yeah. That 70 got me, but yeah, definitely apologies. Okay. So this looks like man-to-man, clear as day. I mean, cover 1 across the board. You think it's now we're rolling out of this to cover 2. Styles right now is trying to bail and get back. And McLean's going to get over to his side of the hash. Now, basically, Indiana at the end of this is going to have a one-on-one with Styles, which you don't want your safety one-on-one with the receiver. That's why you have corners. They're a little faster. So there's a matchup issue there. I think this coverage was fine. I think he was in phase or in position to make a play on the ball. Okay, maybe, he could have come up and went over the top and slapped it down, but this game, we weren't getting those 50-50 breaks. It just didn't seem like that was going our way. I don't think we always want our safeties one-on-one, but hey, hats off to Indiana.
Out, but he turned his hips the wrong way. And the second
at the beginning,
the second his hips got turned, you could see Mendoza knew he was going there.
And he even flipped. I was going to point that out, but he flipped them back so quick.
In terms of a tell, if you got a one-on-one and you see the guy flip the hips, that he's been told to go to that, I bet.
And the tell is the tell was when you flip your hips outside, you're in cover 2, guarding the sidelines, that type of stuff. So a lot of things there going on. So Ohio State, again, has this man-to-man defense, but they're going to stay in it. Downs is down at the robber position. The safety's over the top. The guy lined up down there is Styles. He's going to be the spy in yellow. But the man-on-man here, the most popular play is you run hitches, and if it's man-to-man, what are those guys going to do on 5-yard hitches? Stand at 5 yards. That means that whole left side or bottom side of the field is open for the slot fade, and there's so much room to work. You see this slot fade all the time. Mendoza uses his eyes to hold that safety. He looks to the opposite side of the field like he's going to go down the other sidelines. Again, it's just a tough place for a safety to get when you're throwing a ball at a pylon, and that's another 50-50 win. These 50-50 balls, if you don't catch that in the one before, it's a totally different game. So I always say this word is it duplicatable? So if Ohio State plays Indiana again, do you think they'll make a living on 50-50 balls the entire game again? Meaning they got a couple here. Do you think they'll keep going 100% on 50-50s? Because I can't say those coverages were bad or guys were too lost. I mean, you could point out hips and positioning, but that's why you throw 50-50 balls. Okay.
Mark, hold on a sec. The concern there is they tend to go to the same dudes. Ohio State's not a hard team to look at, hey, wait a minute, that guy's a first-round draft pick. That guy, they're going after the guys who aren't first-round draft picks. So that would be a little bit of a concern. They may have identified some spots. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and second time around, I think you're not. Fair. Yeah, but again, I like to point out stuff like that. Like, could you duplicate what you did to Ohio State? So when you saw them again, like if you were just pounding them for 8 yards a carry, you're like,
right,
that might be duplicatable. When we see that again, I don't know if we have an answer. 50-50 balls are just what they're called. They're literally named on the premise that, you just don't get these. You throw them, and when they don't go your way, you just chalk it up. And at the end of the year, you look at your percentage. Hey, how'd we do on 50-50 balls this year? Oh, we were with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. We were in the 70% range, with some of these other guys, you're at 40%. You're not there. Okay, at least that's a digression on that. Last week, we did a great job on quarterback sneaks. Okay, we really pushed the pile, and it was a 3-man front. If you remember last week, a nose man. This is a 4-man front, and I don't think that's the reason this was stopped. I think Julian gets low. You see how low he is there, and his butt's really sunk down. That means when his knees start churning, they're a couple inches off the ground, and I think he just took a little bump that had that knee hit the ground, while he was churning his legs, and it kind of a flukish way to go down. Not something that you have ever done before or may ever do again, but get low and grind it out. He got a little too low there, I think. And
it sounds silly. You almost need to wait a beat.
Yeah.
To get the leverage underneath you. Is if you go first, you get kind of caught up in the swim.
And that other technique is dangerous where you reach the ball out real quick and go up and over. There's a risk factor there where that doesn't always go your way. But, we're calling these quarterback sneaks, and they're long 1 yards. They're 1.5 yards. Last week it seemed almost like 2 yards. So you're asking a lot out of that play with that many guys. How about this out of Indiana? 7 men up in the box here, 3 more guys behind them for a 10-man box. They're basically saying, guys, you're not running this on 3rd and 2 or 2nd and 2. The only way to deal with this is pin everybody inside with the gap, kick out the end line, the line of scrimmage, and hopefully you hit the crease. And I think the crease was actually there. It just wasn't there the way the tailback expected it. You're going to get your kick out block, and you can see a little daylight in there between this area. And this tight end is going to lead up here on this linebacker. I think the hole is out the back door here. But Bo must see 2 yards in here somewhere. So we can't see what he is looking at there. But that's a 50-50.
I think he just thought he was going to get it, dude.
Yeah. And then that's very fair to him.
And he almost gets it.
Yeah. And a lot of coaches will say, hey, on if we just need 2 yards, just put your head down and go get it. Okay. The whole true hole may have been a bounce, but, we're nitpicking. The 7-man line again. And again, 7-man lines are not that common where you really have this many people up in your box, linebackers up there tight. There's no safeties or anyone on the field. I mean, it's all out. We're coming after your run. Ohio State has the right play call. I mean, we saw Arvell Reese have a lot of trouble with this last week, where when you're in man-to-man like the guy in yellow was, and you're supposed to bite on that play fake, this ball has to go to him right now. Like, soon as you come out of this fake, because who has a better chance of getting this and running for a couple of yards? You back here or him right there with a pretty good angle? I think Julian should have thrown that, and he didn't. And I hate to be critical of that, but that's this type of short yardage play. You're taking advantage. Now, Bo's pinned up against the sidelines, and you can't lead him. Christian Bennett has a step here. But
Bennett
this
Christian.
corner, or Bennett Christian, this corner, boy, talk about making up 3 steps in about 5 yards. He did a great job of that. I think we had this great snap, great hold. I'm not a kicker aficionado, but the kicker's got to really, off this hash, bend it to the left here. And you can see his body lean. He looks like he is really leaning and really kind of, I want to make sure this goes left here. And
it goes left.
Yeah.
He got that done.
Left on it. So if that was like me playing golf, that was definitely one of those hooks out of bounds to the left off the tee, where you're saying to yourself, don't hit it out of bounds to the left. And you hit it out of bounds to the left.
I don't want to start talking about the kicker. I just hope he can gather himself for a stretch run here. And it's probably not realistic to think you could go through a successful playoff run without hitting a few big kicks. So let's focus our positive energy towards Jaden Fielding. Jaden Fielding. I don't want that to get screwed up in any way. Don't mess up the algorithms. All right, this is not the show we expected to do yesterday at this time, but it's one we did anyway because it was quite enjoyable. If you smell anything coming south, that's the smell of a dumpster on fire. Have a good one. Nutters of Buck.